Welcome into the playoffs for the NFL here on BetSided. The gang is all here as we are going through our favorite futures bets for the AFC and NFC, putting together what we think will happen when the two teams match up for the Super Bowl. Good to see you all. Ben Heisler with our team of Ian McMillan, Donovan Smoot, Peter Dewey, and Reed Wallach. The gang is all here. We will go around the horn with our favorite AFC and NFC plays on the future side. And Ian, you'll kick things off with a fairly large one, and maybe a bit of a surprise as well.
Yeah, I'm going to die on the hill of the Las Vegas Raiders. Back at the start of December, I wrote an article saying that I was going to bet on the Raiders to win the Super Bowl. I got it at 80-1 at the time. I think WinBet at the time had them at 150-1. I'm all in on the Raiders at this point, so I'm going to go ahead and bet on them to win the AFC at 20-1 before the playoffs. They're an underrated team. I mean, I cite net yards per play, and I've talked about this stat so much. I've just kind of become a parody of myself. But only the Bills and the Patriots rank higher in net yards per play in the AFC. And I truly think if you break down the sport of football to the most basic aspect of it, which is moving the football forward and preventing the other team from moving the football forward, the Raiders are pretty good at that. And also, if they do beat the Bengals in the first round, they're probably going to get matched up with the Tennessee Titans in the divisional round, which is going to be the easiest game in the entire playoffs for any team, whoever faces the Titans. And then they just win that game and they're in the AFC Championship. So 20-1, I'm going to take a shot on the Raiders, and I'm gonna probably die on that hill.
What about for in the NFC?
NFC, I'm going with the Rams plus 475. I think the Rams are the most complete team, both offensively and defensively. The only thing that they need to not happen is they need Matt Stafford, obviously, to not throw interceptions. In their 5 losses this year, he's thrown an interception in every single one. And 3 of those losses, he's thrown at least 2 interceptions. So if Matt Stafford can not turn the ball over, not throw interceptions, I truly think the Rams are the most complete team in the NFC. So I'm going to take them to win that conference plus 475.
All right, Donovan, I head to you next. You're looking at a couple teams, both in the AFC and the NFC, that if they were to match up, you'd have the State Farm battle in the Super Bowl. So tell me about a little bit more about these futures.
Yeah, so in the AFC, I'm taking the Chiefs. At the beginning of the season, I picked the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl. It was looking kind of shaky, when they started off the way that they did, but they're back now. And I really believe in Patrick Mahomes. Obviously, I believe in what Andy Reid does. They have all the weapons to do it. They're a top 5 scoring offense. They're a top 8 scoring defense. They have a really good bend but don't break philosophy. Also, nobody in the AFC is really great. I think like the best team that we thought could challenge the Chiefs coming into the season would be the Bills. They're not as good as what we thought. So I think that just based off of prior experience, I trust the Chiefs the most. I think that what's really, really going to help is that this Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes connection has really, really heated up in the last couple of weeks. And it's gotten back, on track. And so if Kelce is going, if Hill's going, I don't see anybody really stopping Kansas City in the AFC. And like you said, on the other side, of the bracket in the NFC, the State Farm Bowl, the second half of that would be the Green Bay Packers. And I think that with the Packers having the number 1 seed, that's going to be a big, big factor. I don't trust a lot of the other quarterbacks in the NFC to go to Green Bay and play in, minus 10 degrees and be able to be their normal selves. Do we trust Dak Prescott and the Cowboys? Do we trust the Rams? I certainly don't. I think that the Packers have been the most consistent team over the past couple of years. They made it to the conference championship the last 2 seasons. They have a top 10 scoring defense. They're the least penalized team in the league, and they have a top 3 turnover margin, not to mention probably the MVP of the league in Aaron Rodgers and the best wide receiver in Devontae Adams. So they have a really good case, and so that's where I'm going.
Packers are the only team in the NFL, by the way, to remain undefeated at home. So another reason why the number 1 seed is so valuable. Also finished with the best record against the spread at home as well, did Green Bay. What about for you, Peter? Who are you looking at for the AFC and also in the NFC when it comes to futures bets?
Yeah, I'm going to start in the NFC because Donovan hit on mine. I'm taking the Packers in the NFC. I just think out of all the teams in the NFC right now, the Packers have the least amount of questions. You have the Bucks injury concerns. You have the Matt Stafford and the Rams pick concerns. Kyler Murray and company, do we really trust them in Cliff Kingsbury's first playoff run? And then the Cowboys have been horrible offensively away from home this year. So if you look at this, they're going to all have to play in Green Bay at some point. I like Aaron Rodgers at home, like you mentioned, Ben. They're undefeated at home, and the Packers are getting a lot of key guys back. Like, we've seen this Packers team, and there's been times they've gotten exposed as a run defense, but they're going to get Jair Alexander back. They're potentially going to get Zadarius Smith back. They're going to get their left tackle David Bakhtiari back. They're going to bring back 3 of arguably her 5 best players on their entire team for this playoff run. I think even though it's only plus 150, the Packers they make the most sense. I think the only quarterback I would take to beat Aaron Rodgers right now is Tom Brady, and I don't know if he can do it with the lack of weapons they have with Godwin and Brown no longer playing for this season. So love the Packers in the NFC. In the AFC, like Ian, I'm going to go a little bit more of a dark horse team, taking the Cincinnati Bengals at plus 850. And for a similar reason, because if they beat the Las Vegas Raiders, there's a very good chance they'll be matched up with the Tennessee Titans in the divisional round. We've all talked about it. Titans, I don't really believe in them. Even if Derrick Henry comes back, I like that spot for the Bengals. But you look at the Bengals this season, it's more than just, they have a potentially good matchup. They've beaten the Chiefs already. They have arguably the most explosive offense in the AFC. We look at the Chiefs' weapons. Yes, they have Travis Kelce. Yes, they have Tyreek Hill. But the Bengals are extremely well-rounded. They have Joe Mixon. They have T. Higgins. They have Tyler Boyd. They have Jamar Chase. They won a shootout in Kansas City, which not many teams are going to be able to do. And then you look at the fact that they've played 6 playoff teams this season. They went 4-2 in those games, and their only 2 losses, a 3-point loss in overtime to the Packers and a 3-point loss to the San Francisco 49ers. So I think the Bengals have by far the most value. They're the farthest down of any division winner on the odds list. And I think if the fact that the Chiefs and the Bills might have to match up in the divisional round, it paints a perfect path for the Bengals to get into the AFC Championship.
Yeah, you stole a little bit of my thunder coming up with the Bengals. We'll get to that shortly. But so far, we have the Raiders, Chiefs, and Bengals in the AFC, the Rams, and the Packers in the NFC. So, Reed Wallach, I head to you next. Are you going with any of those 2 teams, or is there something a little bit different on your futures betting card for the AFC and for the NFC?
No, we'll go a little, off the beaten path here, but the Bills are at the top of pretty much every single advanced metric you could find. On defense, we'll start. They're number 1 EPA per play. We've seen Josh Allen play excellent football in big spots this season in Kansas City. Earlier in the year, he smoked the Chiefs. A few weeks back in Foxborough, he smoked the Patriots. I think that loss to the Patriots in that win bowl in Western New York was a little bit of a fluke and kind of threw people off the scent that the Bills are probably the best team in the AFC. I think the AFC is wide open, but listen, I think that this team could go back into Arrowhead and beat the Chiefs. Like I mentioned, number 1 in EPA per play on defense. So listen, give me the Bills to win the AFC. I wouldn't hate if you did a rolling money line parlay, take the Bills this week, take them next week, likely against Kansas City as short underdogs, and then probably as road favorites against either the Titans or someone like the Bengals in the AFC Championship game. That'll probably pay out a little bit better, if not the same, to taking the Bills just to win the AFC. But listen, I think Buffalo has been the best team all year, so I'll side with the Bills. And then NFC?
Who do you like?
I like San Francisco. On Bed and Breakfast, I mentioned that I like San Francisco to beat Dallas. And the path to me for San Francisco is as good as any other teams because they have Green Bay's number. We've seen them go and beat Green Bay in the AFC Championship game a few seasons back. We've seen them handle Aaron Rodgers, mainly because of their pass rush. Nick Bosa is going to get into the backfield. I think that their run game is going to be able to keep Aaron Rodgers on the sideline. And if you see the past few weeks, Green Bay nearly dropped games to Cleveland and Baltimore because they were able to maintain possession and put the pressure on Green Bay. Just get Aaron Rodgers off the field 2 or 3 times. You could shorten this game and really increase the margin or thin the margin of error for the Packers offense. So give me San Francisco at 12-1. I think they beat Dallas this week. I think they go to Lambeau and beat Green Bay like they have in the past. And then listen, an NFC Championship game against a team like Tampa Bay or LA, who the Niners just beat last week, came back from down 17. I love that, a long payout.
All right, so I'm going to steal a little bit from one of you and then steal a little bit from another one. I like the Bengals as far as my favorite bet in the AFC. If I had to choose a team that I think was going to win without actually placing a wager, I still would lean on Kansas City. But Peter mentioned a really good point. The Bengals' path is really enticing, right? Because they're going up against the Raiders. And I'm sorry, Ian, but I don't see the Raiders moving on in this particular matchup. I think Cincinnati, especially in a cold weather game where Derek Carr has had a ton of struggles over the course of his career that could come back and bite him. So I'd like Cincinnati to move forward. So it's really about paths here. And then you get a shot with Tennessee in round 2 that goes with Ian's philosophy that the Titans are frauds. They can go ahead and beat them. So everybody kind of wins there. And then it's an opportunity to take on a team like maybe Kansas City that they've already beaten this year. The path towards the AFC Championship and eventually the Super Bowl in the AFC makes a lot of sense for the Bengals at that type of value. I think the number works for Cincinnati in this particular situation compared to everybody else. As for the NFC, I kind of have to die on this Rams hill for them to be able to move on, because they're a team that can beat you in a wide variety of ways. If they end up going to Green Bay for the NFC Championship, they are going to play a physical, run-dominated offense. They have Cam Akers back for the postseason. They still have Sony Michel. They can run their offense that way. If they end up going to a place like Dallas or somewhere indoors, they can play it through the air with Matthew Stafford finding Cooper Kupp and Odell Beckham Jr. and Tyler Higbee. And then on the defensive side, you know that Aaron Donald is going to create havoc. Von Miller's been playing better, and they still have Jalen Ramsey in one of the best secondaries in the NFL. They'll make the adjustments that they need. This was a team that was built for the postseason, especially with some of their struggles. I actually think you're getting a little bit of better value now, considering that loss to San Francisco. All you have to hope for is that they don't end up playing San Francisco in the next round, because Kyle Shanahan has won their last 6 games for the 49ers against the Rams. So those are our picks for both the AFC and the NFC. Of course, we have plenty of coverage over at BetSided. Make sure you guys check us out. Fansided.com/BetSided. Also, make sure you guys are checking us out on social media as well, at BetSided on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok.